Yo guys, what's up? It's XRAYZ and welcome back to another video. So we have to talk about yet another game being attacked for not necessarily running the best. We made a video recently talking about all the hate that Spider-Man 2 the video game got because the trailer came out, some extended gameplay, about 15 minutes of it, and people were less than impressed by the visual fidelity of the game. And so I made a video on that talking about it as well. But, you know, it was like from an earlier build, and then they came out and were like, hey, earlier build, there's a whole bunch of new stuff in this game. And, you know, people were just upset that it was a PS5 next gen only, like next gen only game. And they were pissed off that it basically came out and was like looking very similar, maybe slightly better than what they had already seen with Miles Morales and with Spider-Man Remastered. So a lot of people weren't exactly blown away by it. So fast forward now to where we are at. We had a much anticipated direct for Starfield because, I mean, everyone's been waiting on this game forever. It's been about 5-6 years now. The direct looks awesome. I did a full reaction to it. I never uploaded it. Maybe I'll upload it as well. I don't know. Let me know if you guys would want to see that. But when I was seeing it, I was blown away. A lot of people were actually pretty blown away by what they saw. That game looks insanely huge, and it's weird because usually when you have a game that is that huge in scope, like places you can go to, things you can interact with, it kind of loses some of the luster and some of the finer details. Some of that stuff gets lost in the scope of the entire thing. And so when I was seeing them kind of go through it, I was like, yo, not only does this look huge with how many places you can go to, they said like 1,000 different planets you could go to and explore, and it's all procedurally generated. So your planet that you go to looks different from your friend's planet that they went to. They might have similar locations and stuff, obviously, but they're going to be in different locations, which I think is pretty cool. So it's like the same idea. You're going to be meeting the same people, but it's not going to be the same planets. Personally, I think that's a very interesting and fun choice. Now, when they finished all of that, which they blew everyone away, the gunplay looked amazing, the weapons looked amazing, the visuals looked amazing as well. It looks so much better than the earlier gameplay and stuff that they showcased. It just looks way better. The lighting looks awesome. It all looks really good. So everyone coming out of that direct was like, holy crap, this is going to be the game. It's going to be huge in scope. It's going to have so many story missions, cities you can go to. The gameplay looks fantastic. It was almost kind of daunting just how much this game has in terms of abilities you can unlock. You can customize your ships. Like there's so much. My head was actually starting to hurt mid direct because I was like, yo, what's going on here? There's so much going on. But anyways, everyone's blown away. So much stuff coming out. And then there is an interview after that they do for Starfield where they confirm the resolution and frame rate that Starfield is going to have, which is going to be 4K 30 frames per second for Xbox Series X. And then if you are on Xbox Series S, which I don't know why they keep doing, it's you know, it's Microsoft's fault for releasing two consoles and claiming that, you know, they kind of hindered themselves because now it's like they have the much more powerful Series X, but now they got to make games that also work on the Series S. So it's like, it sucks, but at the same time, it's I understand what they're trying to do, or they want games to work for people who maybe couldn't afford the $500 one, and you can get the Series S for like $250. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But then they said that the Series S was going to be 1440p at 30 frames per second. And so when that came out, a bunch of people got upset. They started like literally clowning them by saying that, you know, what was the point of them having a game that looks that beautiful if it's running at 4K? And I think the thing that I saw that most people were upset by, it's the comment that I kept seeing coming up over and over on Twitter, on YouTube, is the fact that Microsoft has claimed that the Series X is the most powerful console ever made. And then I saw a bunch of people who were like, hey, well, you know what? People weren't talking crap about Tears of the Kingdom, and that thing runs at 30 frames per second. And it's like an interesting debate now where it's like, are you going to be upset at the 30 frames per second for Starfield? Let me know in the comment section below how you guys personally feel. For me, it's kind of like a mixed reaction because there's two different ways you can see this. One, 30 frames per second locked it's not horrible. You can play through that. It's not going to be like, oh my God. Now, here's the difference between Tears of the Kingdom and something like Starfield, which is going to be a game that relies on a lot of first-person sections. You can play a third-person or first-person, but I'm assuming that when you're shooting your guns, you're going to want to be playing it in first-person. And a 30 frame per second first person shooter, I feel like it's not going to be super smooth to the eye. I might be wrong. The gameplay looked really good. Like I was saying in my reaction that the gunplay and all looks super smooth and super nice. So it might just be where you play the game and you won't even notice it, because I don't really notice it on Tears of the Kingdom. That's a 30 frames per second. And if they can have a consistent 30 frames per second and the game works and the story is great, which it looks like it might be great, then it might not be that big of a deal. Now, considering the whole comparing the Tears of the Kingdom to Starfield, you have to see it as two ways. Personally, and this is my personal opinion on this, Tears of the Kingdom is running on a console that was outdated when it came out. In 2017, when the Nintendo Switch released, it was already outdated hardware. It was like mobile processors, like all this whole thing where it's like, it was impressive that it was a handheld that ran games better than the Wii U, but it was outdated, and because it was a regular handheld, it was very limited. And so they had a game that was essentially 3 times the size of Breath of the Wild, and it runs at 30 frames per second, and it runs well. And you take into consideration every other thing that Tears of the Kingdom has, from the new mechanics that it has, where you have developers coming out and saying like, holy crap, how is this game even running? Because they focused more on the mechanics of the game, and somehow also made the map and everything 3 times bigger than Breath of the Wild. So that's why people are like, well, 30 frames per second on a console that is essentially 7 or 8 years old at this stage, with like how outdated it is, it's a modern miracle that that thing is running at 30 frames per second. And then you compare that to the Xbox Series X, which is not limited by all of that, and you're like, what the heck, why is it running 30 frames per second? And this could just be an artistic direction. They could have just decided, Bethesda, that they wanted it to look as good as they wanted it to look, and the trade-off was that it was going to run at 30 frames per second locked. I just feel like they should do the option that we have in so many other games now, where you can either have it on graphics mode or you can have it on performance mode. Maybe if you're worried about pop-ins and stuff like that, believe me, it's not going to take you out of the experience. And a lot of people, I feel, would rather have some pop-in than and 60 frames per second than 4K 30. And you could have also just been like, hey, you can play this game at 4K 30 or you can play it at 1080p 60. You decide. I feel like that should have been the option. And then you had a bunch of people also saying, well, you know what, this game's going to come out at 4K 30, an unfinished game. That's what I've been seeing people say now, is an unfinished game, and then months down the line they'll have the patch that is like the 60 frames per second patch, and people are going to be like, well, they should have released the game like that. So again, personally, I've played games that run at 30 frames per second. It does not bother me. We'll see how it is when you try to transition that to a game that might have some first-person gunplay. Maybe that'll kind of give me a headache or something. We'll see. But personally, I played so many games at 30 FPS that it doesn't bother me. I'm still excited because of it looks like it's going to have a really good story. It looks like it's going to have a just mind-bogglingly huge world to explore, with lots of missions and a lot of customization and a lot to discover. And if it runs 30 frames per second, it is what it is. I still wish they would have given you the option of like, you can play this at 1080p 60, or maybe you can play it at like 1440p 45 frames and then 4K 30. We don't know the intricacies of all that. Obviously, I don't know how to make a game. I don't know what it takes to run a game at those higher resolutions, with the higher frame rates. But if at all possible, it would have been nice for them to offer those options and just been like, you decide. Even though this is claimed to be the most powerful console in history, well, let's see what happens. How would this game run on a PS5? That's also another question I'm interested in. So with that said, I'm still excited regardless of the 30 frames per second cap. It's kind of going to be mind-boggling that it's running on the Xbox Series S. If it runs on there at 30 stable, that's going to be kind of crazy, dude, honestly. So we'll see what happens, but that's just my opinion. I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people are talking about it. How do you feel about it? Are you excited for the game either way, even though you know now that it's going to be at 30 frames per second? Are you going to wait till it has a 60 frames per second patch in the future? Are you kind of like still excited, but now the hype went down? Let me know your thoughts, your concerns for Starfield. But personally, especially because it's on Game Pass, like, I'm gonna play it, bro. I'm gonna see what it's like, and then if it's like it hurts your head, like for instance the new Gotham Knights game that came out, it was pretty rough. It was a rough start to that. So we'll see. Hopefully it comes out, it runs smooth, people can stay kind of in the experience and not be taken out by the frame rate, but we'll definitely have to see. Personally, I don't think this is the end of the world, and I think that it'll just get better as time goes by, so we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. If you're new, make sure to subscribe and notifications on so you don't miss a single upload. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so by checking out my sponsors, Control Freak, Aim Controller. I use them every time I play. Code OGXRAYZ get you a discount. Link down below to that, or through my Amazon influencer page if you guys would much rather do it that way. Give me a follow over on Twitter at OGXRAYZ if you guys want to talk, interact, see what I'm up to. But anyways, you guys have an awesome day. Take care. I'm out. Peace.